Question number 8. This is the real meat and potatoes of domain and range here, okay? A lot of times you will be getting a graph, and from the graph you have to visually be able to identify the range and the domain. So I like to make sandwiches. What do I mean by make sandwiches? Well, we know that the range is low, high, y. And the domain is left, right, x. What do these little mnemonic devices mean? Well, it means that if I am looking for the domain, I am going to scan from the lefternmost part of the x-axis, scanning with my highlighter, and I'm not going to start putting it down until I see the graph coming in. There we go. The graph starts, and then that is the rightmost part that I see. Why did it turn it into an arrow? That's so weird. Okay, hold on. I'm going to do it again. There we go. So along the x-axis, I am going from -2 to 2. Left, right, x. On the y-axis, I am going to go from low, high, y. So that means I go from the bottom. The lowest part of the graph, I start on the lowest part of the y-axis and I scan up until I get to the function. Whoop, there's the function. He starts at -5, and then I go up until I stop seeing the function. He stops right at 1. Okay, so my range is from -5 to 1. Writing the word 2 in between the two values that the graph is sandwiched between for either the domain or the range is perfectly acceptable on the Regents and will get you full credit. However, if you would like to kind of build some skills for next year, you can write this guy in specific notation. The notations that you learned the other night were inequality notation and interval notation. Okay, so we could write this guy as an inequality if we want. It would be -2 to 2. There would be an x in the middle because we're talking about the domain. And now we have to consider which inequality symbol to use. So at the lefternmost part, we have a filled in circle. So that means we're going to be using an inequality that looks like this. In the rightmost part, we have an open circle. So that means we'll be using an inequality that looks like this. For the range, the graph is sandwiched between -5 and 1. We're going to use an inequality symbol of a filled in circle. So that means we're going to have the line underneath. Then we're going to go all the way up to 1. And he is an open circle, so we would use the inequality symbol that looks like that. Since we were talking about the range, y goes in the middle of the sandwich, okay? You could also use the parentheses. So if we have inequality symbols that look like this, they come from an open circle, and we would use parentheses to write our sets. If you have inequality symbols that look like this, they come from a filled-in circle, and we would use the square brackets to write our sets. Okay, these kind of look like faces of like cartoon screaming kind of, right? So if I wanted to do this now in brackets, I could do -2, and then we are including -2, and we are not including 2. And then over here, we would start at -5, we would go up to 1, we are including -5, and then for the inequality symbol here, we are not including 1. For this second graph over here, I'm going to start scanning for my domain. I start in the lefternmost part, and the graph spawns up right about there and ends right about there. So I am going from -7 to 7. If I wanted to write it as an inequality, I would have -7 is less than x is less than or equal to 7. And then if I wanted to write it as a interval, I would go from -7. Oh, hold on. I'm going to change that because we're not including -7. He's an open circle. So it would be parenthesis -7 going up to +7 with a closed parenthesis. So then for range, I'm going to start from the lowest point. The graph peaks up right about here and then goes all the way up to 1. So I would go from -10 to 1. Using an inequality, it would go from -10. I'm not including him. And I am including the 1. And then the interval would look like this. Parentheses, -10, up to 1, square bracket. For C, for my domain, I scan over, the graph pops up right about here and keeps going to 5. My domain would be from -4 to 5. If I wanted to write that as an inequality, it would be from -4. I am not including him. X goes in the middle. I'm not including the 5 either. And then in a set, it would look like this. I'm using parentheses because I'm not including either side. Like that. Range would look like this. I'm going to start from the lowest point and go all the way up to the highest point. I'm starting from -3 to 6. -3 is included because he is a point on the graph. Y goes here. And then I am including 6 as well because he is a point in the graph. So that would look like this. Okay. And then for the last one, I'm going to graph this guy here, okay? So you can pause the video, graph it on your computer, and then make sure that it looks like this. Oops, nope. Okay. I'm going to get the table so I can reproduce the graph. I'm going to get a few negatives, so I'll start at, ooh, these are giant. Okay, let's start at 0. I would have X, Y, 0, 9. What's next? 1, 6, 1, 6. 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6. And then 4, 9. Okay, so I'm going to graph those points. So I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops. Why didn't that go away? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, he's back. And then 4, 9. This is a skinny graph. All right, so he looks like this. He's so skinny. Okay, I have my arrows. I'm going to label. And then now we just do the same thing we did before, right? Since these have arrows on the end and it continues on forever, we would say that the domain starts from forever and goes to forever. And the way you write that with math is starts at forever, starts at forever and goes to forever. To write that as an inequality, you wouldn't really write that guy as an inequality, but if you wanted to write it as a set, you could write it like this. Okay, and then for range, where does the graph come up? He starts right here, and then he keeps going forever because there is arrows on the end. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes from 5 to infinity. And we could write this guy as an inequality because he has an actual number. So we would say y is greater than or equal to 5. And then we would write 5, including 5, up to infinity.